record. I appreciate that because I definitely would have forgotten.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna.
Okay, of course. There it is. Always moves around on me. Thank you, Krish. Hungry and trembling, James stood alone out in the open, wondering what to do. The night was all around him now, and high overhead, a wild white moon was riding in the sky. There was not a sound, not a movement anywhere. Most people, especially small children, are often quite scared of being out of doors alone in the moonlight. Everything is so deadly quiet, and the shadows are so long and black, and they keep turning into strange shapes that seem to move as you look at them. And the slightest little snap of a twig makes you jump. James felt exactly that way now. He stared straight ahead with large, frightened eyes, hardly daring to breathe. Not far away in the middle of the garden, he could see the giant peach towering over everything else. Surely it was even bigger tonight than ever before, and what a dazzling sight it was. The moonlight was shining and glinting on its great curving sides, turning them into crystal and silver. It looked like a tremendous silver ball lying there in the grass, silent, mysterious, and wonderful. Then all at once, little shivers of excitement started running over the skin on James' back. Something else, he told himself, something stranger than ever this time is about to happen to me again soon. He was sure of it. He could feel it coming. He looked around him, wondering what on earth it was going to be. The garden lay soft and silver in the moonlight. The grass was wet with dew, and a million dewdrops were sparkling and twinkling like diamonds around his feet. And now suddenly the whole place, the whole garden seemed to be alive with magic. Almost without knowing what he was doing, as though drawn by some powerful magnet, James Henry Trotter started walking slowly toward the giant peach. He climbed over the fence that surrounded it and stood directly beneath it, staring up at its great bulging sides. He put out a hand and touched it gently with the tip of one finger. It felt soft and warm and slightly furry, like the skin of a baby mouse. He moved a step closer and rubbed his cheek lightly against the soft skin. And then suddenly, while he was doing this, he happened to notice that right beside him and below him, close to the ground, there was a hole in the side of the peach. Chapter 10. It was quite a large hole, the sort of thing an animal about the size of a fox might have made. James knelt down in front of it and poked his head and shoulders inside. He crawled in. He kept on crawling. This isn't just a hole, he thought excitedly. It's a tunnel. The tunnel was damp and murky, and all around him there was the curious, bittersweet smell of fresh peach. The floor was soggy under his knees, the walls were wet and sticky, and peach juice was dripping from the ceiling. James opened his mouth and caught some of it on his own tongue. It tasted delicious. He was crawling uphill now, as though the tunnel were leading straight towards the very center of the gigantic fruit. Every few seconds he paused and took a bite out of the wall. The peach flesh was sweet and juicy and marvelously refreshing. He crawled on for several more yards, and then suddenly, bang! The top of his head bumped into something extremely hard, blocking his way. He glanced up. In front of him, there was a solid wall that seemed at first as though it were made of wood. He touched it with his fingers. It certainly felt like wood, except that it was very jagged and full of deep grooves. Good heavens, he said. I know what this is. I've come to the stone in the middle of the peach. Then he noticed that there was a small door cut into the face of the peach stone. He gave a push. It swung open. He crawled through it, and before he had time to glance up and see where he was, he heard a voice saying, "Look who's here," and another voice that said, "We've been waiting for you." James stopped and stared at the speakers, his face white with horror. He started to stand up, but his knees were shaking so much he had to sit down again on the floor. He glanced behind him, thinking he could bolt back into the tunnel the way he had come, but the doorway had disappeared. There was now only a solid brown wall behind him. Chapter 11. James' large, frightened eyes traveled slowly around the room. The creatures, some sitting on chairs, others reclining on a sofa, were all watching him intently. Creatures. Or were they insects? An insect is usually something rather small, is it not? A grasshopper, for example, is an insect. So what would you call it if you saw a grasshopper as large as a dog, as large as a large dog? You could hardly call that an insect, could you? There was an old green grasshopper, as large as a large dog, sitting on a stool directly across the room from James now. And next to the old green grasshopper, there was an enormous spider. And next to the spider, there was a giant ladybug with 9 black spots on her scarlet shell. Each of these 3 was squatting upon a magnificent chair. On a sofa nearby, reclining comfortably in curled up positions, there was a centipede and an earthworm. On the floor over in the far corner, there was something thick and white that looked as though it might be a silkworm, but it was sleeping soundly and nobody was paying any attention to it. Every one of these creatures was at least as big as James himself, and in the strange greenish light that shone down from somewhere in the ceiling, they were absolutely terrifying to behold. "I'm hungry," the spider announced suddenly, staring hard at James. "I'm famished," the old green grasshopper said. "So am I," the ladybug cried. The centipede sat up a little straighter on the sofa. "Everyone's famished. We need food." 4 pairs of round, black, glassy eyes were all fixed upon James. The centipede made a wriggling movement with his body as though he were about to glide off the sofa, but he didn't. There was a long pause and a silence. The spider, who happened to be a female spider, opened her mouth and ran a long black tongue delicately over her lips. "Aren't you hungry?" she asked suddenly, leaning forward and addressing herself to James. Poor James was backed up against the far wall, shivering with fright and much too terrified to answer. "What's the matter with you? You look positively ill," the old green grasshopper said. "He looks as though he's going to faint any second," the centipede said. "Oh my goodness, the poor thing," the ladybug cried. "I do believe he thinks it's him that we are wanting to eat." There was a roar of laughter from all sides. Oh dear, what an awful thought." "You mustn't be frightened," the ladybug said kindly. "We wouldn't dream of hurting you. You're one of us now. Didn't you know that? You are one of the crew. We're all in the same boat." "We've been waiting for you all day long," the old green grasshopper said. "We thought you were never going to turn up. I'm glad you made it." "So cheer up, my boy, cheer up," the centipede said. "And meanwhile, I wish you'd come over here and give me a hand with these boots. It takes me hours to get them off all by myself." End of chapter 11. Stop the share. Now, let's see. If you have a question about the story at all, you can unmute. If not, we're going to move right into the capitalization lesson.
Mr. Bagby.
Yes?
So I was absent the last 2 days for the online school, so I don't know what.
Jack, listen carefully. On assignments, all the assignments for this week are still up. And at the end of those assignments at the bottom are chapters 1 through 8. Okay? So on Monday, you got chapters 1 and 2. On Tuesday, you got chapters 3, 4, and 5. And on Wednesday or Thursday, you have chapters 6, 7, and 8. So they're all there. You just have to find them, okay?
I need Wednesday and...
They're all there on assignments. Every day is on the assignments page. Got it?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Anybody else have a question? All right. It's a great story. And it's wild. And I love doing the voices.
They're adorable.
Here we go. Capitalization. All right. We're going to run through this. And then you're going to take a quiz on quizzes. It's a review of capitalization and when you should capitalize letters. Because believe it or not, some of you still don't start sentences with a capital letter. That's hard to believe because you know it here, but you're not practicing it when you're writing. Could everybody mute, please? Capitalization. Capitalizing sentences, quotations, and letter parts. We always capitalize the first word of a sentence. P, pioneers pushed the American frontier westward. Rule number 2. You capitalize the first word of a direct quotation that is a complete sentence. Tyrone said, the pioneers acted very bravely. As you see, the T there is capitalized. When a quoted sentence is interrupted by explanatory words, such as she said, do not begin the second part of the sentence with a capital letter. So the capital letters here, they left their home, said Lee, but then you don't capitalize this word because it's a continuation from the comma and from the beginning of the quote. When the second part of a quotation is a new sentence, put a period after the interrupting expression and begin the second part of the quotation with the capital letter. So here's the difference. You capitalize this word, many pioneers went west for the rich farmland, and because this ends in a period, you have to start with a capital letter. In fact, whenever you see a period, almost always the next word is going to be capitalized. Do not capitalize an indirect quotation. An indirect quotation does not repeat a person's exact words and does not appear in quotation marks. It is often introduced by the word that. Tanya read that many pioneers traveled in Conestoga wagons. Capitalize the first word in the salutation and closing of a letter. You capitalize the title and the name of the person addressed. Dear Mrs. Johnson. Dear is capitalized. Mrs. or Mr. or Miss or Ms. and J and Johnson, dear, but you don't capitalize friend because that's not a name. Yours truly, you capitalize the Y, you capitalize the S at the end of the letter. Let's do a few more here. Capitalizing people's names and titles. Rule 1 of that category. You capitalize the names of people and the initials that stand for their names. Meriwether Lewis, Susan B. Anthony, J. F. Cooper. Capitalize a title or abbreviation of a title when it comes before a person's name or when it is used instead of a name. General Lee, Senator John Glenn, Mrs. Adams. Did Lieutenant Clark say, yes, Captain, I'll go with you? And here's a case where if you just wrote the word captain, you normally wouldn't capitalize it. But when captain becomes the person's name in the question or the quote or the statement to somebody else, then you would capitalize it. Let's go through one more and then we'll pause there and give you guys some chance to talk together. Do not capitalize a title that follows a person's name or is used as a common noun. Clark himself was later promoted to captain, see the small c. Thomas Jefferson, then president, he's not being addressed as president, he's being described as president, planned the expedition. So we'll end that now. You can look at the whole entire PowerPoint or the slideshow, it's not a PowerPoint, the slideshow on the link, or you can wait till Monday, it's up to you, but you should go to quizzes and you will have 2 quizzes there for you to do today. So let's stop the share. And if you have a question about anything today, if you checked out your assignments and you're not clear on something, now's your chance to ask. Anybody have a question about anything? This is Friday, by the way, so if you have any work lagging behind, make sure you get it in.
I have like 5 things I have to do. I have to finish.
Okay, we're going to go now to our CEO in charge of production, CEO Brown. 1, 2, 3. What's your question?
My question.
You muted yourself again.
Because I temporarily unmuted. I pressed space. My question isn't really a question. It's about what you had said about if we were lagging behind on work. I have to get the science that Miss Nix has for us. I have to finish my review test because I worked on that yesterday. I have to do my daily assignment after I restart my computer, and then I have to do the vocabulary test.
All right.
The vocabulary test and the daily assignment I'm not too worried about. It's mainly the
you can address those to Mrs. Dirks. Anybody else have a question about ELA, social studies, or anything else regarding my work, what we've talked about today? Zoe or Haley? Haley, I see your hand up. You need to unmute and just ask.
Wait, Haley has her hand up? She did.
Haley, did you have a question?
Mhm.
Oh, I thought you had your hand up like this. Hello, call on me.
My hand up because I was trying to remember Josiah's Roblox name.
Okay.
Why?
Like,
All right. If there's no more questions, I will be here again until the meeting ends. You have around 5 minutes or so to talk. So you guys can talk with each other. I'm still here and I'm still viewing and I'm
It's
still
just
listening.
that magic piece of duct tape. Now it looks like actual duct tape.
What?
I want to eat the big that. Wait, it's a
Whoa.
pizza, right?
My question is, are we allowed to share our screen?
No.
Meow.
No, don't share screens. Just let everybody talk.
Mr. Bagby, why don't you just turn your video off instead of putting a duct tape on it?
Because I like the drama of the duct tape.
Minecraft.
Are you playing with Legos too?
Wait, who is?
Minecraft.
I could go up to my car right now and show you what I got for Easter.
Well, you
Minecraft.
should get.
Why
What
is
did you
everybody talking about Minecraft?
Who thinks I have Legos?
Mm,